Welcome to Who Cares, the podcast that embarks on a profound journey into the heart of empathy and indifference in our modern era. Each episode of Who Cares brings you insightful conversations with a diverse array of guests from various industries and walks of life. But Who Cares goes beyond individual stories. We dive into the larger societal and psychological undercurrents that have led to a perceived decline in collective empathy. Who Cares isn't just a podcast. It's a powerful call to action for reigniting the spirit of empathy within each of us. Let's find the answer to Who Cares together. Welcome to Who Cares. So today on Who Cares, we are honored to have the president of Crafton Hills College since January 2019, Kevin Horan. Hope I said that right.
You did Horan.
Yeah. Okay. And a professor at the University of Redlands and chair of the Department of Counseling and Human Services, Janee Both Gragg.
Mm-hmm.
And that's correct?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. So instead of me introducing you, I'd rather have you kind of introduce yourselves, tell me a little bit about your history, and maybe how you got together for this great project we're going to talk about today called Project Fieldstone.
Do you want me to start?
Who would like to start?
Okay. So this is my 27th year in higher education. Been in the California community college system though for 19 years, and for the last 6 have been serving as president of Crafton Hills College. Came up through I'm a non-traditional type of pathway to the presidency of a higher education. I came up through student services. I was the director of residence life, beds and toilets, and got exposed to the business of higher education. Got really fascinated with how institutions run and been involved in every aspect of it. But I've met Janee actually through our youngest kids play on the same travel basketball team, and so we got to know each other, and we would talk often at practices and on the road and things about higher education. And one of the challenges that I was seeing for Crafton Hills specifically was as we came out of the pandemic, our employees were struggling. They were struggling on a lot of different levels, and we didn't really have a robust way to help them with any, what we're now calling mental health issues or mental health support. And so I'm a huge Ted Lasso fan, and was really fascinated by the character Sharon Fieldstone in the series, who came on to be a sports psychologist and help with the players and just their overall well-being, and so they could be, better human beings and better football players. But so that's where the nickname came from.
I like it.
And just realizing that all we really had at our disposal at the college was an EAP program, I'm sorry you're having some problems. Here's the brochure. Please call this number. And we did the occasional type of wellness activity, like, come go on this hike. And it'd always be like after work or on a Saturday or, something like that, or come do yoga. And so when I started talking to Janee about it, I was like, I don't know what we need, but we need to try something different. And so Janee came up with this model of every week having different interventions planned with different providers. And it ran the gamut. I'll let Janee really talk to the details of that. And, some of the things were kind of a swing and a miss, and some of the things were a big hit. And I've been approached by several employees of the college who participated. We had a volunteer pilot group of about 25 people sign up and have come to me and say, like, this part of it really meant a lot to me. And this made a big difference in me wanting to, still be here and come back to work. And so I was like, okay, we had some success and really just not knowing what was going to happen. And then out of that, we also learned that, at least in my conversations with folks, was the other side of it is we're not doing a great job at preparing our workforce to work with students who are maybe experiencing mental health challenges or just personal stresses and all the things that go with being a student. And so that's the other aspect that we need to explore, is that professional development for our faculty, for our classified staff, for our managers, about how we embrace that work.
Yeah.
And because right now our model is, let me take you to the health center.
Yeah.
Oh, they're not open today.
Oh.
Here's a number you can call. And so we're talking about how we can do that differently moving forward.
Terrific. So maybe you can tell me a little bit about your background and how you ended up here.
Yeah. So I'm a first-generation student and first-generation faculty member. I started at the University of Redlands. I think it's been like 15, 16, 17 years now.
Wow.
I started there doing some adjunct work, and then a position came open and got on the tenure track. I have a real passion for the clinical work. I probably knew by the age of 13 that I wanted to be a therapist, which is maybe a little odd, but and had some mentors along the way that were very clear that I should get a doctorate probably before I even knew what that was or what that would look like or what that would entail.
I remember reading your mentor told you, don't stop or don't quit.
Yeah,
Keep going.
go all the way.
Go all the way.
Yes. And I trusted her, and I was like, I'm going to do that. Yeah. And, I was very naive and probably didn't really know what that meant, but got a doctorate and, again, have a real passion for the clinical work, but very early in my academic training in a master's program, got goosebumps learning in a theories class that there were ideas, concepts, language, models for describing like relational dynamics and things that I had grown up watching and seeing play out. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to teach students and get them that excited about those concepts and ideas and that language. And just pursued that path and have been teaching. And one of the areas that I've gravitated toward is mental health literacy and wellness education, decreasing stigma and discrimination around mental health, and really supporting people identifying how to gain access to the resources that they need. And it was kind of an interesting meeting, Kevin, because I was venting to a girlfriend on the phone in the gym, and I was like, I'm working too hard, and I can't wait for girls' weekend. And then I was telling Kevin about a project that I was working on after that, a festival that I organized, and he was like, oh, yeah, I work at Crafton. I was like, I need a connection at Crafton.
Yeah.
I need to get them my information. What do you do? And he had mentioned like the counseling. He was asked what I did, and I said, I'm a therapist. I work at the university. And he's like, yeah, we can't keep our counseling center staffed or whatever. And so I was getting information. I was like, yeah, what do you do? And he's like, I'm the president. And I was like, nice to meet you. Like, it's so awkward, right? But it's just been
So
fun.
sorry to disappoint
right?
you.
No, like, it was just fun after that to kind of have these really dynamic conversations about what the needs are and the issues are around mental health on a college campus, and to hear his perspective about the needs. And so it was one of those moments where I was like, I have an idea, right?
Wow.
And I pitched it, and he was down for it. And so we went there, knowing that some things were going to work and some things weren't. And what a privilege is that, to just have an opportunity to see what we could do.
Yeah. So interesting how when the idea is cooking, everything in the universe comes to you.
Yeah.
Without you having to even seek it out when it's the right thing, right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing. So then how did you get it off the ground? What were some of the first things that you...
Well, I'm a big believer of you have to take some action and then figure it out along the way. You can't design to perfection and then wait for that before you can execute. And so I think we launched it, signed, I identified some one-time funding that, I went up through my channels to the person I report to and said, hey, I want to spend a significant amount of money on something that may not yield anything. So just a heads up. And so we identified the funding, and then we kind of put together a contract, and I often found myself saying like, I don't know what we're doing. Like, Janee is going to tell me what we need to do. And then we had logistical issues, like what room do we meet in? Where is it located? How do people, the time of day we were offering things. We would see like, oh, that didn't work. Maybe we shouldn't do it at lunchtime. Like, let's try something else. And so we just kind of launched that, and I stayed distant from it because I didn't want to influence it or influence the people who participated, because I've learned over the years when I come into a room and I sit down to have a conversation, I change the dynamic because of my position.
Right.
And so I didn't want to be near that. I wanted it to be organic. And so I would just get report out like, hey, we did this or we did that. And
yeah. So you had initially 25 people sign up for that program?
Mm-hmm.
it was
I think so.
Yeah. And how long did it go for? What were some of the events that you did?
So I think roughly the program from beginning to end, the service delivery period was about 5 months.
Oh, wow.
The project overall, maybe 4.5 to 5 months. The project overall was 6 months, ended in a full report of the process.
yeah, it was January to May essentially. And then we got the findings of, the summary of it in June.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you did actually the research. You did you did research findings and
just a summary of like what we learned from the project and from beginning to end. I think one of the most notable things was kind of a disclaimer that came with the MOU and kind of framed things from beginning to end that then also shaped findings. Not anything, one thing specifically, but was kind of like there's a process involved, right? So if you are sitting in ambiguity and you don't really know what's going to happen and you're dealing with counseling per se or mental health or here's opportunities for you to grow and learn, the disclaimer being you don't know what's going to come from that, and sometimes things can get worse before they get better, right? And I remember putting that in the disclaimer in like a draft MOU, and thinking, I wonder how that's going to go over, right?
Yeah.
And we had a conversation, and Kevin was like, "I love that," but I think that really set the tone for the kind of project that it was. And the openness to letting it be whatever it needed to be, not only for us as people who were curious to do the work and see what needed to happen to be helpful to advance the conversation academically or advance the services on an actual campus, but also for the people who were involved. What is it that they needed for this project to be, or what was the services actually that were hitting or missing, right? And so the only way that we could learn that is if in real time they understood that this was a process where they were also engaging in such a way that they were part of that and could provide in real time feedback.
Yeah. So were these planned events? Were they therapeutic based? What actually happened during the 5 months?
Yeah, so it was structured in such a way that we had outside community providers sign up to be part of it, and they came in once a week to provide on-site services. So they were like subcontracted, and we marketed those and made those available on-site. But we also understood that, and they were kind of workshop style.
Okay.
And we anticipated that from a workshop perspective, people would come in, do some psychoeducation, learn some information in an environment with their coworkers across staff, in union spaces, right, across categories.
The different labor groups.
Groups, right?
Okay.
So you could be with a supervisor, you could be different hierarchies, levels. But it would just be workshop, kind of psychoeducational, right? But that we understood that could stir something, right?
Yeah.
And you might be like, oh, I need to do more work in that area. I would like to know more about myself in that area. And so if something fell outside of the scope of this particular project, we also had outside providers that we had talked to about the project. They were excited about the kind of work that we were doing. They had signed up to say, we will support anybody in this pilot that wants to do more. And so they were listed on we created a website that kind of explained the project and had the bio of the on-site providers as well as off-site providers. So people understood that if it stirred something, if it tapped into something that they wanted to know more about, or they recognized they needed to do more work outside of the scope of the project, that they could reach out to these providers as well. And something that came up that was interesting then in the project was feedback that the workshop style was uncomfortable for people to be in that mixed group, right? That they felt like they couldn't share or be open or be honest. But then in our minds, that's not what those were for. So you asked, was it therapeutic or whatever?
Yeah.
Well, like, it was just going to be a workshop. It was going to be kind of some psychoeducation. But it also communicated to us they really wanted to do that work.
Yeah.
They wanted something therapeutic. They wanted to be able to really process and share and have a safe space, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, we did also provide, okay, you can do these workshops, and then you can also sign up for one-on-ones, right?
Yeah.
So we thought if it stirs something and you want to process, you want to ask questions, but we called them consultations.
Yeah.
Because we thought, maybe people don't really want to go there. They'll be like, I just have a quick question about this workshop you just did. And then it can segue into a personalized relationship.
Yeah.
So we didn't want to stigmatize anything. We didn't want to label or name anything, but you can do a one-on-one follow-up, right? So it was this interesting dynamic where people really were saying, we want that, right? To be a little deeper, but in that way, then they didn't want to be right alongside people that maybe had extra power or control in their environment,
right.
Or were decision makers. And so thinking about moving forward, how do we meet those needs? Maybe where there is. So then also intuitively, thinking about culture and climate, how do you meet both needs? If there's conflict and there's tension in those spaces, you don't want to just back off from that.
Right.
You want to facilitate a strengthening of those relationships and a facilitating of psychological safety. That requires sometimes coming together, right? So maybe being explicit and preparing people for that. This is a space for that.
Yeah.
But then also we're going to have time and space to just be together in our own groups separately.
Yeah.
And just being more clear about defining that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems very powerful getting all those people together. And do you think, one of the thoughts I had while you were talking about it was that the fuel behind this was pandemic fuel on some level.
Yeah,
because people
absolutely.
hadn't been together for so long. And then to come together in group is such a big thing.
Yes.
That, those emotions probably had been brewing for some time. And now it's like, well, you're providing the space. I want to get it out, but I can't.
Yeah.
So, in this place.
Wendy, I really appreciate you bringing that up. Like, I think people back off of the pandemic and they think, oh, that's so past or that's not still relevant. But I think that's really still important. I think that there were people who wanted to engage but maybe didn't or couldn't. They asked for virtual sessions. There were people who I think wanted to be engaged but just couldn't get out of their office or still had some apprehension about showing up in person. Yeah. But I think that the pandemic dynamics played out in a lot of different ways. Still apprehension about coming together and also the need to connect. Our Surgeon General talks about the need to feel safe and engaged and involved and well in our workplaces. So that really that was a framework that we used to drive this initiative. But he also talks about the issues that we have around loneliness and the need to connect. And so I think a lot of that that was all his work has been post-pandemic, right? Highlighting all of that. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you.
I think one of the outcomes of it that really, Crafton Hills College is part of a multi-college district. So there's two colleges. We have a district office. We have a KVCR entity that's Empire KVCR is actually owned by the district. And what we realized out of that constituency base, that labor group base was, okay, we have the college dynamic, and then we have this district employee dynamic. And so the conversations since have been about, we need to start talking about the employee development, the employee support on a district basis. That became evident for one of our HR folks who engaged in the project and helped evaluate it. They're looking at how we can now serve the entire district employee base differently than what we've been doing with the successes. And then that is one of the dynamics that I heard out of it was, I don't want to be in a room with this person who maybe it's not their supervisor, but they have political influence on the campus, and they can influence their lives in other ways. And so there is that dynamic. The way I've started to think about it at the end of the project is that I'm realizing that we need to approach the work much like we've done with our efforts to bring awareness to diversity, equity, and inclusion, anti-racism, looking at disproportionate student learning outcomes and how we're engaging faculty and our service providers, our classified professionals, about how they look at their work through that equity lens. Yeah. And so we need to start. I'm glad you're hitting it first and it's not me, because I'm going to hit it at some point. That it needs to be a part of almost every conversation about how we embrace mental health work and support. And that's now I'm looking at it from the professional development standpoint of how do we have the same conversations we have in that style, because now at like Crafton, that's threaded in every aspect of our work. The DEIA work is it's embedded in all of our educational master plan. It's in our student equity plan. We talk about it in our facilities master plan, how we create an inclusive environment. And so we need to do the same thing now with the mental health support, because what I've learned is everyone is in need of it, like at some level and engagement with it. And so,
well, I think we've always had that, but I think, with the pandemic, it brought it to a head big time. And people are just really on edge more than ever. I see that as a therapist myself, that they're quicker to come to therapy. They use it more effectively. They're actually wanting it. They're wanting to reach out. And I think with your model and what you were trying to do, what I see is that there's two things at hand. There's business, and then there's the personal, and they're so strong that you got to find a way to incorporate them, but yet keep them separate, I think, on some level, so that people can express the personal parts of what's happening for them and yet still run a business, which is a challenge. I can imagine it's a huge challenge.
The push and pull is I compared it's the transactional versus the transformational. So one of the best components of I think American higher education is that it's transformational work, and it's transformational work through collaboration. And then the pandemic put us into a mode of more transactional, and we were going to complete these tasks, and the transformational aspect was lost for a little while. And so there's that push-pull with it.
So how does that sit now for what you're doing? I mean, how does that affect your future work in the positions that you have now?
Well, we're taking advantage of some personnel changes that took place in our health and wellness center. And some people retired, with some people moving on to different things, and we're in the process right now of designing a new position. So in our health center, it was nursing based, physical services. You can come in and get light health care. Nothing serious. You can't come get X-rays. You can't come have surgeries or anything like that. And what we're going to do is flip the switch on it. So then we would have some hourly therapists available that would come in. They would change every semester. Not much of a relationship. We're making the primary function mental health, and so we're going to be hiring a new position. The title hasn't been settled on yet, but it'll be a management position that will be a provider half of the time, and then a promoter half of the time. And the promotion is the professional development. It's the intentional outreach. It's the teaching people how to be mental health providers without the licensures. How to be the support mechanisms. Doing more. We've identified areas where we need to do more intentional outreach. I'm wearing my Fire Academy shirt today, and we have a huge EMT paramedic fire first responder student community. And there's huge need for, and so we want to start, and while they're in the academy, normalizing, this is how you do follow-up from the traumas you're going to witness firsthand and experience. And so, we're hoping to get this position finalized by October, or I guess the end of this month, and then hire for it and have the person start in January. And then it's a little bit of like, it's not designed perfectly, but we got to take action and start thinking about it differently.
Yeah. Well, I read that you've chosen jobs in the past that that require a tolerance for ambiguity, and it sounds like that's what you follow. That you're able to tolerate that it's kind of ambiguous. You don't know where it's going, but you're following it. You're following the process anyway of how you want it to look.
Yeah, I'm curious I'm driven through curiosity. I'm curious about learning about things and how I am not a therapist. I know very little about the mental health world. I know the value of it though. Yeah. I can see what will bring to the student experience, what it'll bring to the organization. And you got to start somewhere. It's not going to be perfect. Yeah. We'll have some missteps and but we've got to do something differently. We can't continue to well, what's the Einstein thing? You can't expect different outcomes if you have the same inputs, and so that's the next step for us. And then on the district level, there's more conversation about how can we do this on a larger employee employee base.
So did you feel like it was really accepted well by the district and some of the other communities you dealt with?
That was mainly Kevin that did that. I mean, we've also, the other thing we've been able to do is we put in a proposal to an academic deans conference, American Academic Deans Conference. The goal there is to do maybe a 2-hour workshop that would be for deans, administrators, provosts across the country to get a better sense of the project and the work that we did, thinking about things that they could do as leaders if they were interested in being more thorough and strategic and integrating mental health into academic settings explicitly. Because I don't think it's just us, right? I don't think it's just us that sees that it's an issue, or that more needs to be done to support students, or that faculty, staff, and administrators could use more training to better support students, to strengthen a culture and a climate of wellness on campus. And so we should know soon, but there's a need for it, right? And so that's another step that we've been able to take.
So what were some of your biggest surprises that came out of all this? What did you learn?
I don't know if it was a surprise, but I was pleased with how well the idea was accepted. The idea of the project. I expected like, oh, there he goes doing something strange, and he'll do whatever he wants. But the more I engaged with people, like there's like the acknowledgement of like, we need this, and it wasn't from everybody saying like, I need this. It was like, oh, this is really going to help us as an organization. I was really pleased with that. That was surprising to me because I wasn't sure what the reaction would be, because I was a little afraid that people would be like, you're telling us we're broken. Which is true. Our system is broken.
We are.
And we need to be better at it. So that was,
but they could have come with defensiveness, right?
Yes.
Right. But people are so open, and again, I think post-COVID, people are open to support, and the timing's right.
Timing's right. Yeah.
And they want to be led on some level. They want somebody to help through this, navigate something.
Because where else are they going to get it?
Yeah.
They've probably tried, and it's not accessible. So how can we build it in accessible ways to things they're already doing and environments they're already in every day? Yeah. That's integration.
Yeah. Well, and this could, travel across different levels of school too. I could see it being important in public schools even, teach the teacher mental health in their classrooms, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Instead of how to use a gun.
Right? That's a whole topic.
Crazy.
Right? It's a whole other topic. Yeah. So, let's see. I want to cover. So I think, what we do, we talk a lot here about this general feeling of apathy, I think, that I've noticed. This is what kind of fueled us starting this podcast. everywhere you go, people feel very disconnected. They're just going through the motions. They're just, getting through the day, a general feeling of disconnect. So, I wanted to kind of tap into some of the industries and people that still have this strong passion to do these things. And maybe, that's why Ted Lasso was such a big deal and so popular, because it was all about that. It was that feeling, that creation, and but I'm wondering if you noticed that in your students, that general feeling of like just kind of checked out, like overwhelmed from everything, and almost like a zombie-like culture that we're developing, and maybe how that is seen on campuses at all.
All of that exists. We see it. We see it in students. We see it. I mean, in the numbers. We were just looking at something the other day, and we were looking at 33% of our students drop out.
Wow.
Now, California community colleges are open access institutions. So if you can demonstrate you will benefit, you can attend a California community college. So we have everybody comes through the door. And then a lot of people come in and they're like, I wasn't ready for this, and they'll withdraw. But that's a large number of people.
Yeah.
I think on the employee base, what we talk about now is there's this national dialogue about the value of a higher education that's taking place. Is the debt worth it? Is the investment from the state or individual tuition, is it worth the outcome of getting a higher education? And I think as employees, people are like, you're saying there's a lesser value of what I do. And so I think people are struggling with that.
Right.
Is the work meaningful still? Is it, does anyone care about getting a history degree or whatever, whatever this, I don't mean to pick on the historians. I'm not singling them out.
Gonna get in trouble for that.
Yeah, it's gonna come back and bite me. Let's pick on the psychology. Let's pick on the psychology. Do I want to be a psychology major? And so, is the work meaningful? And you can see that in staff, about their level of engagement. Am I bringing value to it? Do I contribute? Do I do a good job?
Yeah. I would start by saying what Kevin did. Like, certainly there's some of that, all of that, right? And I would add that, and I'm probably biased, but it's such a great time to be in mental health right now, right?
Yeah.
And it's such a great time to be in front of students who are coming into the field, because I never thought in my lifetime the field would look like this, right? And part of that is post-pandemic again, right? Last semester I had 3 PhDs in my classroom.
Wow.
There's just students that are so excited and so clear and so focused on what it is that they want and why. We've had a shortage of mental health professionals since we entered the field, right? But now people are talking about there's a shortage in mental health, and there's a government that's like there's a shortage in health professions. And guess who's now included in those health professions? And that hasn't been the case, right? And we've seen we're included in Medi-Cal now. I mean, I never thought, we fought our whole careers for that, and it's just happened in the last, 2 years? So, I mean, the momentum in the field and the advocacy, the decrease in stigma and discrimination. I was funded by the California Mental Health Services Administration in 2014, the Lime Green Mental Health. Nobody was talking about it then, right? Yeah. But now, I was like, when, the red nose and the red on the Today Show for heart health, I was like, when are we going to talk about mental health in May? And now they do, right? So in 2014, I was like, why are we not doing that? Now they do. It's not a thing.
That's true.
So there's so much traction and synergy around mental health in a way that gives me hope. And I see that in the classroom. And and then there's moments, right, where I can see that there's been trauma, and I see that there's discouragement, and I see that they've lived through this stuff. But for them, I also see that's part of why they come back and they fight, or they get a second wind, or they fight hard to engage in their self-care or practice what they preach, or try to engage in what it is that they're learning in meaningful ways, or ask for help, right? So it's also an exciting time, I think.
Yeah. So I hear the passion coming from you.
I can't help it.
And why do you think it's so personal?
Oh my God. Good question. You did that on purpose. No, it's a great question. It's always been personal. It's always been personal. Like I said, I knew at 13 I wanted to be a therapist. I grew up in a household where, my mom was physically and mentally ill. So even before I had words, it was a tough environment. Before I was pre-verbal, right? It was a tough environment, and there were needs that weren't met, and there was fighting, and I learned to survive, and I just knew that when I could make a difference, I wanted to make sure that I helped other people not have to feel that bad or experience the things that I experienced, or know that there was ways to get help or access resources. It's always been personal.
Yeah.
And
for you?
The passion about being in education.
And why is it personal for you?
Wow. It's I see in my position, for whatever reason, some people will open up to me and share what's going on with their lives, and I see the impact it has on the work that they're doing. And for me, it's like I want them to have joy and want to come to work, and I want to leave a place better than when I found it. And it's that competition side of myself where I'm like, oh, I set goals and I want to have this done. And I think the key to, having a strong organization is the people that work there. And if they're well taken care of, they will take great care of the students. And so I see that outcome, and I want Crafton to be the best community college in California and have all its successes, and it's because of the people, and we need to take better care of the people.
Yeah. So it's that ripple effect too that goes right down to the students. It can't not affect them, right? And they're going to be the next ones to hit all our communities, doing this kind of work. So it's so important that they feel that from you.
Yeah. San Bernardino County is the largest county in the contiguous United States. It also has the lowest college going rate of any county in California. And we have a responsibility to lift that up. We need to bootstrap our community. And education is a key to greater personal prosperity. It's greater individual growth and personal growth. And it will make a difference if we can do better by our community.
Yeah, absolutely. So with this project, is this a continuation now? Are you doing this again? Are you taking what you learned from the first part and moving forward with it?
I think for us, the next step is this position that we're creating. That's the next step. And then we need to engage more in the conversation about how we're going to do this district-wide as an employee base, because I can't do something in isolation at one site. And so we're having those conversations, but the pragmatic thing is creating this new position that will help create greater services for our students, but also provide a greater resource for our employees and professional development.
Terrific.
I mean, I think for me, how I'm positioned is other than helping to disseminate the information and what we've learned through academic conferences, and I just continue to be an advocate for workplace well-being and some of what Kevin said, the importance of people being able to feel like they can show up at work and have a voice and contribute, be part of a team, have experience psychological safety, have the experience of having joy in their workplace, and being able to learn and grow is so important, right? We spend so much time at work. Yes. We oftentimes invest to be able to do what we do for a career, and to feel like that pays off, or that those are enjoyable hours during our day is important. And so continuing to be an advocate for that and support the community or different organizations or agencies where I can in that would be important.
So you can really feel the caring that comes from the work that you guys do. That must be a great feeling to honor that in your everyday work and feel that in your everyday work and then see the achievement of that come through for you.
Yeah, there's nothing like seeing student success. I mean, it's a drug, right? You know, favorite day of the year is graduation. Like it's not because they're leaving. It's just you see their see their success. You know, actually, my favorite moments are watching the families. Like, you know, when the little kid yells every year at graduation, it's some of these little kids. That's my mom or that's my dad. And you're like,
wonderful. Oh, yes, yeah. And then also the teachers, helping them to reestablish their passion, I would imagine, too, where it's probably very damaged at this point because in this society, we don't value teachers just across the board. I think we don't have a big value for teachers, unfortunately, and the work there is so important. Yeah.
I agree.
So important.
Yeah. And you know, creating that space where people feel like that I have, what did you call it? Something safety. Psychological safety
yes.
in it. And it's not just about their personal psychological safety. It's like about their profession too, you know, really encouraging people like, hey, try that thing that you think will make a difference in your classroom. Like do that. And let's see what happens. And we've got a big initiative going right now around low stakes testing or no grading. But really measuring the learning outcomes in ways where you say, okay, you've got the outcome and you're gonna get an A. You're gonna pass the class instead of saying like you've got to take these 5 tests and you can see the difference in the students and there's the learning
engagement is different.
Engagement is way higher.
Oh, I can imagine.
The understanding of whatever the concepts are, was math or psychology or history or whatever, it's incredibly enhanced.
Wow.
And then you can see the faculty member living in a state of chaos because they're trained like, no, we're supposed to have this grade book with these tests. And then when they adopt this different way of approaching it, it's invigorating and scary but making them feel engaged and
that's exciting. I'm just thrilled to hear it. So I can't tell you how excited I am to hear all this and the possibilities that ensue from it. And I appreciate you coming here today and sharing this with us, and you know, means the world. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
This was fun.
Yeah.
I just to add to, I didn't really talk about, but Janee's partnership has been absolutely key to this work. You don't often find someone who's so willing to say, "I'll work with you on that." And she's just embedded in that. The ACTW group that she's helped found and organize and is built on partnership and bringing people together.
That a little bit. I read that. I didn't bring that up. I would love to hear more about that. So ACTW stands for.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yes, that's wonderful.
I have had the privilege of founding in 2014 the Alliance for Community Transformation and Wellness as a faculty member.
Oh, wow.
At the University of Redlands. Originally funded, I had mentioned, by the California Mental Health Services Administration, some seed money. Our mission is to advance conversations about and action toward mental health and wellness throughout the Inland Empire. So, and we do that through a number of ways. I actually brought flyers that I'll share. Funding shifts and changes, and so I learned really early that I probably should do some fundraising to try to live our mission. So in 2017, we also started Vibe Festival of Wellness, or Vibe Health and Wellness Festival. We changed the name a few years ago. And so that's based on the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration's 8 dimensions of wellness. Oh, yes. We like that because it contextualizes mental health as just one of 7 other domains, right, that require time and attention for optimal health and wellness. Yes. And the festival is free and open to the community.
Nice.
We hope to draw from all over Southern California to the Redlands area, which is a beautiful community, and is a partner in hosting the event.
Wonderful.
And we open the event with a 5K and family fun run, and that's kind of a fundraiser that really helps raise funds to do the community mental health literacy and wellness education that we bring to youth and families in the community.
Wow. And where do you get the time for all this?
I'm a workhorse.
And a mom?
And a mom.
And a
yes.
dad?
And a dad.
Yes.
Yeah.
But my work, I just took a strengths inventory, so this is truthful. My work brings well-being, right? And so I can justify it. It really does.
Yeah.
And like you said, you hear the passion, and it's personal. So I enjoy it.
Absolutely. I know.
Yeah. It gives back.
Worthwhile, right?
When it's meaningful work, it gives back.
Yeah. That's terrific. Well, thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.